Welcome to FPB's Meet the Candidates. This Cable 10 series allows you, the viewer, to get a closer look at our local candidates and talk about issues that are important to our community. We've taken questions from social media, email, civic groups, anybody that wanted to turn in a question. We've taken a look at those and put together some questions to talk about with our candidates. This is all leading up to the general election, which is on November 8th this year. So today we have with us, her name is Kate Bennett, and she is the Republican candidate for county attorney. So let's welcome Kate. Hi.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Frankfort Plant Board, for having me here today.
Absolutely. Well, let's just jump right in. And first off, just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you have chosen to run for county attorney.
Thank you. So I believe Frankfort is at a pivotal point right now. And I believe that I'm uniquely qualified to hold the position of county attorney here in Franklin County. Before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Kate Bennett. I've got family all over Franklin County, and the love of my life is my 6-year-old son, Colt, who is he's in first grade at Good Shepherd. He loves soccer. So I'm a soccer mom. I'm a baseball mom. That's what the majority of any spare time, if I'm not working, is spent doing. Franklin County is at a very pivotal point right now. According to the FBI, we have the third highest violent crime rate of any non-metropolitan county in this state. Crime, again, if you just watch the news briefly, you see crime is at an all-time high. And I believe that Franklin County deserves and needs an experienced prosecutor to combat those things, someone who has spent their career protecting communities and protecting our most vulnerable in the communities, and I believe that that's me.
Okay. Well, for those who may not know, will you tell us a little bit about really what a county attorney does?
Right.
And kind of what the responsibilities are.
Great question. Franklin County, but the county attorney's job specifically, county attorney touches all facets of Franklin County. It starts with misdemeanor prosecution. So anything that's punishable by up to a year in jail, misdemeanor, so most commonly DUIs, criminal trespass, those types of things, petty theft, those are the types of things that the county attorney serves as the prosecutor. One of the most important things I believe the county attorney does as well is they serve as the juvenile prosecutor. So if there's a child, someone under the age of 18 that's been charged with a crime, they provide either, they prosecute them and hopefully provide resources to prevent that child from being in the justice system again. Child support enforcement. Franklin County alone last year was $2 million, owed $2 million in arrears in child support payment. That's $2 million that could, one, be injected back into our community, but $2 million for moms and dads to take care of their kids, and so child support enforcement. Another large part is providing legal advice to the fiscal court. So they serve as the legal counsel, sort of like the city solicitor does to the city commission, but they provide legal advice and legal counsel to the fiscal court. And importantly, but what I believe has been neglected in the past and I think is critical for our community coming up is code enforcement. So prosecuting these local ordinance violations and those types of things to make sure that we can grow and thrive as a community.
Okay. So what do you think is the most important skill for a county attorney to possess?
I think you have to have experience, and I think you have to be qualified, and that's why I believe I'm uniquely qualified for this job. I'm a career prosecutor. This is not a job for me. This is a calling. And I've spent the past 11 years of my legal career being a prosecutor. I started right after law school doing juvenile and child support prosecution in the Northern Kentucky area. And then I served for 5 years in Kenton County, 3 of those as the section chief for prosecution with child victims, felony child victims. Experience in a time where crime's at an all-time high, you have to have somebody that has dedicated their professional career to protecting communities, that have the connections in the communities, but somebody that has the experience and knows what you have to do to decrease crime. And that's what I believe Franklin County deserves.
Okay. So what do you think distinguishes you from your opponent?
Well, I think, and thank you for asking that question, I think that there's a clear distinction and a choice to be made by voters. Do you want someone who has dedicated their career to prosecuting, dedicated their career to making connections, to figuring out how to better the community, how to make the community safer, how to work with community partnerships to help those that are in recovery or those that need to go to rehabilitation, those type of things, but somebody that wants to protect the community. Again, I believe there's a clear distinction of someone that has dedicated their career to prosecution and someone that's not. Someone that has not been on that side, someone that's been on the other side, frankly, for the entirety of their legal career. I think the other thing that the other distinction for voters is that I've had the opportunity to do this in different settings, while my opponent has not. I've had the opportunity to prosecute in Kenton County, one of the most thriving counties in our state, in Fayette County, in Scott County, and I've had the opportunity to do that, see how these systems work, and I want to come home and I want to do it here and make sure that we can protect Franklin County for our youth, for our general population, and for my son.
Okay. An important part of public service is community support. So can you share with us any civic organizations or nonprofits that you've had the opportunity to assist within the recent years?
Thanks. I served as a board member for a few years for the Sunshine Center, which we're familiar with here in Franklin County. And this morning, I just signed up as a trophy sponsor for Bridging the Gap. Bridging the Gap is going to be on September the 18th at Kentucky State University. This is an organization that is creating these partnerships between K-State, our community, and other members of our community. But my whole career has been in working with these civic organizations and doing this. I did also spend some time, I was for almost 2 years on the Franklin County Planning and Zoning Commission. I was an appointee to the Planning and Zoning Commission until about mid-2020 and served in that time. But my mission and what I've done is to work and partner with these community organizations, to meet with these community, whether it be the Focus on Race Relations, or whether it be the Kiwanis Club, or whether it be these organizations where you partner with them and you have the conversation. That's one thing that I think that also distinguishes me as a candidate is I'm willing to have the tough conversations, the conversations that have never been had before in our community.
Okay. Well, I've heard that the office of the county attorney is the best job in the courthouse. But truthfully, from what I hear, when operated correctly, it's very diverse. It can be overwhelming. And there is the prosecutorial function, the service as a civil advisor to county government, and miscellaneous duties for the state and the county. So how do you plan to manage all of those obligations, and what will be your main focus?
Well, again, crime, kids, code enforcement. Those are our big three. Decreasing crime, making it so we feel safe when we go to sleep at night in our houses, protecting child victims, providing resources for juvenile offenders, and then code enforcement. I believe that code enforcement is the only way, or not, I don't want to say only, but one of the ways that the county attorney can actually help affect economic development. When we take a tour and we go to certain parts of Frankfort and we see abandoned houses or overgrown, yards or those types of things, that detracts an investor from coming in and spending money in Frankfort. And I think it's our job to aggressively prosecute code enforcement. Now, what does that mean, aggressively prosecute? Well, we get a first violation, a second violation. It's our job and our office's job to figure out then the why. And why is this happening? Is this a case where it's a landlord that's being negligent, or is this an elderly person that needs help? And then it's our job as the county attorney's office to pair them up with resources within our community, these faith-based organizations, groups like the King Center, and these types of places where we can pair them up, get them resources, and whether it be an elderly person or a juvenile, and help them. But when you talk about it being the best job in the courthouse, it has a significant impact on, you said, the miscellaneous duties and several things. A county attorney is allowed to hold a private practice and have a private practice on the side. I think that is immoral. I think it's unethical. And I think it is something that, even though it's permitted, there's way too much to do here in Franklin County. So I have absolutely no plans to do that. My only plan is there's way too much to do in the courthouse and in this community. I have no plans to do anything and will not focus on anything except being a full-time county attorney.
Okay. Breaking down the responsibilities just a little bit, and you've addressed some of this in previous.
There's a lot, but
Yeah.
you have to go through it.
As far as the prosecutorial function, and I will say that weird every time.
It's a tough one.
It's my understanding, again, that the county attorney works with district court and prosecutes all violations of criminal and penal law in the court's jurisdiction, correct?
Yes.
So for the normal person, explain what that looks like and what's the difference between in the civil, district, and circuit courts.
So you're the district courts, civil, criminal district, and then circuit courts as well?
Yes.
Okay, so each court, yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah.
You've got district court and you've got circuit court.
Okay.
Circuit court is for the higher level, you have the civil and the criminal division of the circuit court. And as part of that, the criminal division is felony prosecution. So any case that's punishable by a year to, frankly, to the death penalty. Those are the cases that go in front of the circuit court as far as the criminal is concerned.
Okay.
On the civil side, it's these higher level, there's certain ones that have direct appeals, but there's higher level, higher monetary value that go to circuit court. As far as district court's concerned, district court is, again, it's any criminal violation that's punishable by up to a year in jail. So again, DUIs and those types of things. And then there's the different civil aspects that most commonly small claims court and that type of thing, but
Sure.
those are handled by civil attorneys.
Okay.
Well, if that makes sense.
It's a
there's
lot.
a lot. Yeah.
So let's discuss the advisory role for a minute. Again, like you said, the county attorney serves as legal counsel for county government, and that involves a lot. And a lot of people would say that that seems like a full-time job in itself. So in addition to providing services for the general county government and its officers, the county attorney acts as legal representative to many county boards, commissions, and special districts. So again, it seems like a full-time job. So what experience do you have in local government that you think will help in this role?
Right.
And then also, how do you plan to work with the fiscal court and its political subdivisions?
Great question.
Yeah.
As far as the experience to do this, when I took about a 3-year period off from prosecution, and during that time I served as the Deputy General Counsel of the Kentucky Labor Cabinet. And in that role, I did administrative services, which were, we handled different divisions of the Labor Cabinet, but before that, I was the general counsel for about a year. I was the general counsel for the Public Protection Office of Administrative Services. So I served as legal counsel to the Secretary and the Governor for an over $600 million budget for for the Cabinet, counsel on HR matters as well, and operations and fiscal. So this was a very unique experience that I believe would help me and make me a strong candidate to do this, to provide this type of resources. Currently, I serve on the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council, which is a statewide board. I served on the Franklin County Planning Commission. But as part of that role at both the Public Protection Cabinet and then again as Deputy General Counsel of the Labor Cabinet, my job was to advise boards and commissions that fell under those cabinets and to work with, again, an over $600 million budget. And so I believe that makes me uniquely qualified to go in at this the local and county level and say, hey, this is what we've got going on. I believe another strength of mine is asking for help. When there is it's something that, I believe, that we have to, that might not be something that's in my bailiwick or everything. It's my job, and I believe it's a job of the county attorney. It's to reach out to those that do. Reach out to folks that do know these things and get as much information as possible.
Okay.
To address your question regarding I think you call it the political subdivisions of fiscal court, I'm a team player. I played team sports all the way up through college, and being a part of a team and hearing the different sides and being able to listen to different sides and help lead a team is something that I've done, frankly, for my entire life. What is important, I believe, as the county attorney is to stay in your lane. I don't believe it's the job of the county attorney to provide political advice to members, but I will provide you with options. I will provide you with options. I'll research this, and I'll make sure that everything is legally appropriate and provide these options to fiscal court. And that's not providing the options in the meeting. That's having meetings before the meetings to discuss and say, here are your options. Here's what we're going to go into to discuss. This is how we make it run efficiently. I believe that's the job of providing legal advice to the fiscal court.
Okay. As county attorney, you would have to work with almost every state agency in some capacity, carrying out their legal needs and potentially prosecuting on their behalf, including divisions such as the State Transportation Cabinet, Health and Family Services, Department of Revenue, Fish and Wildlife, Education Workforce Cabinet, and it goes on and on. So how do you plan to navigate those waters, and what experience do you have with some of those agencies?
Thank you. Uniquely, because of the way Franklin County's situation, having the capital city here, you have the ability to prosecute cases on behalf of, again, Department of Revenue, Secretary of State, Attorney General's office, Fish and Wildlife, and those types of things. And through the time that I spent in state government, I made relationships with the Attorney General's office. I worked closely with the Attorney General's office, and I worked closely as being a cabinet level attorney at the Labor Cabinet. I had the opportunity to work with Education and Workforce Development, Cabinet for Health and Family Services, and I actually represented the cabinet and the governor's office in litigation on that. So to have that, I'm very familiar with Fish and Wildlife. My dad spent 12 years there as the commissioner, so that's one of the things I'm looking forward to, the opportunity to maybe prosecute some of those fish and wildlife crimes and how that is. But my relationships that I've built with individuals like Secretary Adams, Secretary Ball, General Cameron, and people that I can, frankly, I can call and speak to about those things. I think I believe that those relationships that I've created with those folks will be very helpful and serve me well in that role.
Okay. So what would you say is the most pressing issue that needs to be addressed by the county attorney here in Franklin County?
Crime. When the FBI statistics came out at the end of June and said that we have the third highest violent crime rate of any non-metropolitan county, only behind Pulaski and Warren. This was something that I think it shocked a lot of folks. And I believe law and order, providing people the safety and the comfort that their house isn't going to get broken into, that we are going to be able to protect you, and that working in conjunction with both the Frankfort Police Department and the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, Kentucky State Police, and any other agencies that's working within our county. So having that working relationship, which I was just recently endorsed last week by the Kentucky Fraternal Order of Police, and having those relationships and protecting folks, I believe, is the number one priority. Two, the opioid epidemic is taking over not only our county, not only our state, but our nation. I've started drug courts, specialty courts, to help folks from the ground up. I have started these. I started one in Indiana when I first started working there, and I helped to start one in Kenton County. And I believe providing resources for folks that are that have been victims to substance abuse, and then aggressively prosecuting those that bring that poison into our community.
Okay. Let's talk about code violations. You mentioned it before. So what would be your process in addressing code violations?
So we have a code enforcement board here that typically, and what they do is they hear the first set of violations. You know, if someone, say, let's talk about a gutter that's been hanging off a house, and, you know, it's very dilapidated for, you know, several months, and they get this first violation. It goes to the code enforcement board. Once they get that second violation then has the ability to file a citation with the county attorney's office. This, again, I believe is one of the number one ways that the county attorney's office can help affect economic development, which is a huge hot topic here in Frankfort, Franklin County. I know you've probably heard it in every interview you've done so far. But I think it's one of the only ways to affect it. But it's not, again, aggressively prosecute those. But the job is to find out the why. We have to find out the why. Is there a reason that these people can't fix them because of some physical disability or some other extenuating circumstance? So that's the question that I will put back on. You know, I've talked to numerous elected county officials, folks that work for code enforcement and those types of things, and, you know, there is a dissatisfaction in how that's being handled, and that there's not enough code enforcement at this time. But what I pledge and what I want to do is create that sense of community where Once that second violation comes, okay, why? Why is it there? We figure that out. We put that in, we challenge our county officials and those that work for the county and the code enforcement. We challenge to say, what's going on here? We figure it out. If it's a situation where it's a landlord or somebody that's completely capable of doing it, it will be aggressively prosecuted.
Okay. How about ethical violations by employees? What's the process for handling those?
So when I was at the Public Protection Cabinet, I served as the deputy or kind of the backup ethics officer for the cabinet. And if you're talking about ethics violations, this is something that I feel very strong about. As an attorney, you only have you have your reputation, and as an attorney and as a lawyer, we police ourselves in a lot of ways. So it's our job to hold ourselves to a higher moral and ethical standard. And when it comes to those types of things, ethical violations, can you clarify, are you talking like for county officials or county?
Yes, county officials, any employees, of the county, or, you might be called upon to represent. Or I'm sorry, as far as prosecute things that are happening there in county government.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's not something that needs to be taken lightly,
Yeah.
because as a public official and someone that, anyone that's been voted into office or as a public official, you have the trust of the people that are around you, and it's your job to maintain that trust. And when that trust is broken, frankly, one, it makes anyone running for office or anyone in office look bad, but it makes people lose that trust. So in my mind, I believe that that's something that would need to be aggressively pursued. And I have, working as, again, in the Office of Administrative Services and Legal Counsel, I worked in several different aspects on, if somebody did commit an ethical violation that resulted in termination or those types of things. I was the one that handled those cases at the administrative hearing level, and it's something that absolutely, I'll frankly do here as well.
Okay. Well, as part of your job, I'll ask, is something you would you handle anything like the abuse of power by police officers in our community?
So it's interesting how that works. I think I'm not quite sure the structure of how Franklin County does it now, but what's typically called a 1983 action, where a police officer is sued, for an abuse of power, those types of things. Currently, I serve on the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council. I was appointed in 2019, but as part of that, I'm on what's called the Professional Standards Committee. And what we do is every 3 months we meet and we get a list of folks where either their agency has recommended, based on ethical violations or criminal violations, for a police officer to have their certification revoked. This is something I've done for almost 3 years now. It's something that I do not take lightly, and something that I have quite a bit of experience in. But again, it's this: if you're a police officer or if you're an elected official, you are held to a higher standard. And if you do not hold yourself to that higher standard, it's the job of others to make sure that you do.
Okay. Let's talk about funding for a minute. How is the Office of County Attorney funded, and how's the compensation set for that seat?
It's lots of different funding mechanisms that come into the county attorney's office that range from funding from the Prosecutor's Advisory Council, which is attached to, again, the Attorney General's office, and you have the Justice and Attorney General's office, and you have that funding, the state funding. You've got local funding from the fiscal court, and then you also get funding, depending on your child support enforcement, you get funding from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. So those are just one of 3 ways that it's funded, and that's how the compensation is broken down.
Okay. So in dealing with a budget for the county attorney's office, do you have experience working with a large budget that you think is helpful in this role?
All right. Again, my experience as serving as the legal counsel to the Office of Administrative Services at the Public Protection Cabinet, dealing with an over $600 million budget, when you have to make sure when that fiscal year comes around that our general funds, our restricted funds, and everything are in the right place and every dollar is accounted for, because that's what the public deserves. So my experience serving as legal counsel to both the Cabinet Secretary, our Executive Director, and the Governor's Office to say, hey, this is where the money is, this is where it's going, and this is how we've done it, I believe that'll serve me well.
Okay. I know you mentioned before 3 things, but just go over them again. What are your priorities regarding the county?
Thank you. Crime, kids, and code enforcement.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you speak directly to our viewers and just tell them why they need to vote for you on November 8th.
Well, thank you again, Kathy, and the plant board for this opportunity to come and speak directly to the voters. Folks, I humbly come before you today and ask you for your vote for Franklin County Attorney. We are at a pivotal turning point in Franklin County, and as part of that, we have to decide, are we going to be a community that's going to thrive, that's going to be safe, and is this something that we want to do to protect our kids, to make our education systems better, to decrease crime, and to affect economic development? Is this something that we want to do and how we want to go forward? And this is why I believe that I'm uniquely qualified for this job. I've had the opportunity to prosecute in different places, and Franklin County is my home. I choose to be here. I've chosen to be here, and I've chosen to raise my son here with my family here. It's time for someone with new ideas, new solutions, that is ready to come in and frankly, shake things up, ask the why. It's not because it's always been done this way, but why? Why do we do it this way? And how can we do it better to affect our county and to help our kids? November 8th, please, and if you would like some more information about the campaign, please go to Facebook. You'll find Kate Bennett for County Attorney. We've got several events coming up in different parts of the county, everywhere from South Frankfort to Bald Knob to Schweitzer. We've got events coming up all over the county. And please come stop. I'm ready to be asked the tough questions and to make the tough decisions. And on November 8th, I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kate, for coming and talking with us. I know our viewers appreciate it because they like to hear from our candidates. And I appreciate you for watching because it's so important to get informed. Again, this is all leading up to the general election, which is on November 8th. So get informed, go vote, and then after you vote, go home and watch Cable 10 because we'll be giving you live election returns coming from the county clerk's office. So we'll see you there. Remember, your vote is your voice, so it's so important to use it. Thanks.